Eduardo Rezende. I'm a film composer based in Los Angeles, and today's actually my first video talking in English in front of the camera. I did a few videos early this year talking in Portuguese, and I don't know, it just felt right to try something new and try to just do some videos in English and see how I feel about it. So yeah, this is it. I already asked for apologies in advance for any mispronunciation, but yeah, let's just get right to it. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about something that's been on my mind a lot lately, and is about this idea of bringing in a film composer to work on your film way earlier in the process. Most of the times we only really get to start on a movie or even get to know about the existence of this specific movie that we're going to work on when there's pretty much a locked cut already. It's full of temp music and the deadlines are only getting shorter. And for anyone who doesn't know, temp music is basically pre-existing music that the editor or the director or whoever throws it in when they're just cutting the movie together and they want to test the pacing, the mood, the rhythm of a scene, the performance of the actors. And it's usually, music from films that were a reference for the director or library music, stock music. And so what happens is by the time that we get to a project, the director is already in love with that temp. They can't see that scene without listening to that music. And so our job, unfortunately, becomes do the same, but different. And that very often kills the identity of a score. Can it still work? Sure, it can still work, but that's never the goal of a director, to just have something that just works. They want something that's unique and something that stands out and make their movie stand out. And as composers, we're not really there just to decorate your movie. We're there to elevate your story and help you tell that story. And the best way to avoid this is just to bring us earlier in the process. By giving us more time, we have the opportunity to develop different techniques, different sound palettes, different instrumentations, seeing what's working, seeing what's not working. And the result of this is something uniquely made for your movie, and when you have something specifically done for your story, that's when you really build an identity of the movie. And the music can and should be part of that. And I think that it also helps the director maintaining a cohesive thought about the whole concept of the movie when you have this process going on. Because when you can show some music that you've been developing with a composer before cutting, so that means the music is truly just about the story itself. When you show that to an editor or a producer or an actor, that helps transmitting the thought of what you as a director is thinking of the story. It's another medium of showing your team what the concept of your movie is, if that makes sense. So I wanted to give you guys a few examples of movies that did that. And the first one is a movie that's probably one of my favorite movies of all time. And it is Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan, with a fantastic score written by Hans Zimmer. Probably my favorite Zimmer score. That is very debatable, but I think it is my favorite Hans Zimmer score of all time. But it could be a tie. I don't know. It is definitely one of the most unique Zimmer scores of all time. But anyways, so basically Hans wrote the first ideas for Interstellar way before he even read the script for it, which is bizarre. But basically, Nolan gave him a one-page letter that tells the story about a father who has to leave their children to go on an important mission. And notice that there was nothing about black holes or space travel and humans going into extinction and all this beautiful, interstellar visuals that the movie got known for. So Hans wrote some music after reading that letter, and it said that after Nolan heard it, it was when he found the heart of the story. And I think there's something so beautiful and pure in that, because just think about it, there's nothing but words and music, Hans had absolutely nothing to lean on. There was no actors, no CGI, no picture, no color grading, no sound design. It's just storytelling in its purest form. You know, he just reacted to what those words meant to him. Great scores don't just sit on a film, they grow inside the film. And in this case, the film grew from the score, which is just amazing. And another example that I want to talk to you guys about is Sergio Leone and Ennio Morricone. They had a very specific way to work together that I don't think I've ever seen before. Because instead of writing, shooting, editing, and then working on the music, they were often writing, working on the music, and then shooting with the music. So Leone would sit down with Morricone and just describe the overall feeling of the movie, the tone, the rhythm, the pacing. And just by hearing Leone's words, Morricone would start working on themes and musical ideas to just develop his concept of the movie before the shooting. And that's also something very, very pure, because you're just sitting down with a director and they're describing the overall feel of the movie on their own words, without showing a specific piece of paper, without showing a cut, without showing anything, but just describing how they feel. So imagine that you're shooting a movie and you're on set and they're playing this piece of music that was specifically composed for that story. And the actors are reacting to it, the camera operators are reacting to it, the director is reacting to it. So in a way, you're kind of doing the opposite of what we're so used to doing nowadays. And now you're creating the movie on top of the music and not the other way around. And Leone has this quote that I absolutely love. He said, "I've always said that my best dialogue and screenwriter is Ennio Morricone." That's how central the music was for the process of making a movie. It was part of how the movie was written. It was part of how the movie was shot. It wasn't just part of how the movie was finished. So bringing this back to reality, especially for, lower budget and indie films, when you invite a composer further in the process, you're basically signing them up for a fight against the temp. You've got the entire movie to it, you've heard it 100 times, and you're emotionally attached to that music at that point. So even if you're saying that you're open to something new, you're secretly hoping that the composer can just do something that's incredibly close to the temp. But when you bring a composer early on, you're flipping that dynamic. The reference that everyone falls in love with becomes the original score, even if it just starts with rough demos. The director, the producers, the editors, the actors, they all start to build their own emotional connection to the music that the composer did, and that just helps them having a better performance. It helps them building a better connection to that story. And don't forget that the score is the first thing that the audience feels and the last thing that they remember. And the good thing is that you don't need to be working on a Hollywood blockbuster to have a composer earlier in the process. You can just be working on a 10 to 15 minute short and just apply all these things I mentioned. And I can tell from professional experience that sometimes a very rough demo way earlier in the process can become the tonal anchor of half your film. And at the very least, you as a director can just grab those early pieces of music and use that to describe to other people in the team what the story is really about. So if you're a director, producer, or an editor and you're working on a project right now, I invite you to just grab a piece of paper and just write a few words on what the story is really about and send that to your composer and let that be their introduction to the story. I'm gonna leave my email down below if you want to send that to me. But anyways, if you watched this video all the way to this point, thank you so much for sticking around, and who knows, maybe the score of your next film starts today. Start as early as you can. If you're a filmmaker, film composer, or you're just interested in music and movies in general, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button. Who knows, maybe I'll do more videos in English. I don't know. Goodbye.